Welcome to The Trader, a Traitors podcast. I'm Matthew. I'm a writer working in unscripted TV development, and this podcast is usually dedicated to covering different countries' versions of The Traitors, of course. However, while we are waiting, I've been saying all season, well, we're waiting for the next season. There is a next season. It's on its way soon. I'll tell you very quickly about it. Well, we've been waiting for this new one. We've been covering other shows. Netflix's Million Dollar Secret. And for the past 6 weeks or so, we've been covering the UK version of Genius Game, which is airing on ITV, or was airing on ITV,
Yeah.
and was hosted by David Tennant. It's all over now. To help me recap the episodes and analyse the gameplay and close out the season is, of course, my regular co-host, reality and strategy competition guru. It's David Bloomberg. David, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm feeling all cow tickly to be here.
I'm feeling cow tickly too, except now we know the truth behind that. We, anyone listening last time, David and I were both very confused about Ken's description of how he was going to play. It seemed to just be us two, though.
Yeah.
Everyone on YouTube was like, "What are you both talking about?" Someone emailed me and said, he's saying the word chaotically. It's really not that complicated." Uh, yeah, went back and listened and thought, oh, yeah, don't know why we got that so wrong.
Well, and the funny thing is, both of us heard it. It's not like we came on and I said cow tickly and you were like, what are you talking about, David? It is chaotically, obviously. No,
Oh,
me with my Midwest American non-accent and you with your Scottish accent. Still,
yes.
both of us heard the same thing.
Yeah, I'll blame it on being Scottish and, just other British accents sometimes trip me up. What can I say? So, David, we have reached the finale, and again, as one season ends, another instantly begins. Stay tuned to the end of the podcast to find out what the trader is moving on to next. Again, if you listened last time, you'll know what I'm talking about. And when I say moving on to next, I really mean within about 24 hours. Uh, David, in case anyone is just tuning in for the finale, and actually that may happen, some people might have come right to this episode. Tell us who you are.
Well, yes, for anyone who doesn't know me, I have been covering reality TV for 25 years, online, in newspapers, on my own reality TV websites, and of course, for almost 10 years in podcasts. And in addition, I post reality TV videos on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram as at David Bloomberg TV, and talk quite a bit about the topic on Blue Sky and pretty much anywhere else that anyone will listen.
Yes. And in case anyone watching on YouTube is thinking, hey, Matthew isn't wearing his Trader hoodie that he always wears, it is because, again, I am a very pale Scottish person and it's slightly warm here in London. It's too warm for me to wear that hoodie, so I'm wearing a t-shirt instead. It's still, kind of matches. It's green.
Yeah.
This is all I can handle. And usually I'm drinking tea from my Trader mug. It's just some sort of a squash today, some fruit juice. Uh,
Squash.
Squash, yeah, yeah. Squash is like it's like when you have like really concentrated juice and then you just top it up with water and dilute it.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. I thought you were drinking like literally like squash juice. Like you
squash
know,
flavored juice.
yes, yes.
Very, very healthy. Uh, so see,
Butternut. Yay. Acorn squash,
there we go. See, the Trader is also very educational in the differences between American English and British English.
Yes.
Uh, Now, before we head into our finale episode, just one more point apart from Cow Tickly to tidy up. One more addition to something we mentioned last time, maybe even the time before. We mentioned that Bex has possibly been on at least one other TV show, as well as some of the other contestants, actually. Someone on YouTube said, actually, even Ken has been on TV before.
Hmm.
He's a familiar face to some people. There was some more follow up on Bex. Someone had told us that she was on an episode of The Finish Line on BBC. Turns out it was a rerun. So Sarah on YouTube said the Finish Line episode Bex was on was a repeat of the 28th of May. On the 20th of May, it was new on the 12th of June 2024. So the BBC had her on nearly a year earlier, which
Which was
explains this.
probably right before they actually filmed
Yeah,
Genius Game. Yeah.
yeah, probably by the sounds of it. And Sarah also says Ken has literally hosted BBC shows before, so he's no stranger to many people. Similarly, I had a message from Harry on Instagram who said Bex apparently did The Chase many years ago. Do you have The Chase in the States? Game show,
Uh,
quiz show?
is so I think we do. I think we have it, or at least used to. I don't know because Game Show Network is on a lot in my house, so I'll see things and not
And
necessarily know if they're new or old. But
okay.
is it the one where so the the genius
The
person,
Chaser.
the chaser,
Yeah,
tries to catch you on this board,
that's
and
right.
if as long as you don't get too many wrong while they get it right, then you're
Yeah,
good.
yeah, that's it.
Okay.
So big show in the UK, been running a long time. Bex was on there. Harry tells us, and she said on her, apparently she did a Rob has a podcast exit interview. She was on there. She said she applies for 20 shows in one night and then none for 5 years and then rinse and repeat. So
Yeah.
there we go. If Bex looks familiar to anyone else, this explains it. So, David, I think we are ready to go ahead. Our final episode of Genius Game
Yes.
ever. Uh, here we
Yes. Yeah.
go.
Yeah. Probably.
It's episode 8, the finale episode of Genius Game UK. So we begin, of course, with a little recap. I mean, it did actually make me laugh. David Tennant does this sort of flashback to 70s earlier, which is
Hmm.
funny to think that they really did film this all in a very short
Yeah.
space of time, but we've only had one episode a week. We saw the players receiving their fancy invite boxes, and there's a montage of various games, betrayals, eliminations. In the last episode, the semi-final, Bex left early by completely screwing up the game at the first opportunity. We saw Ken pull off a truly genius move that fooled the others and gave him a pass to the final. And the remaining three played a death match that Bedalia only half understood. Even now,
Half.
maybe.
I think you're giving him way too much credit on half.
10% understood.
And by the way, I do want to mention something else. I should have mentioned this at the top. So as I've mentioned, I post videos, and on Instagram, Ben follows me and often comments on them. And this time on one of the ones I made about Bordalia, uh, not the meanest one I made the past week. Um, he posted something. Bodalia himself saw it and posted a laughing emoji. And Ben responded to him and said, "Yeah, they do a podcast and they really don't like you on there." Um,
Oh, we don't not like Bedalia.
yeah,
Not at all. He seems like a nice guy.
yeah.
Just too
That's
nice.
what I
Too nice
wanted
for
to
this
say.
game.
I wanted to say that, but I didn't want to make
So,
Bodalia feel worse because what I would have said fully was, no, it's not that we don't like him. We just think he sucks and shouldn't have been cast on this game. But in at a personality level, I think he's perfectly fine. So,
yeah.
just it's just whoever cast him should be fired, not him himself.
Yes, yeah. We just struggled with his choices and his appearance on the show.
We
But
struggled with his struggling.
we
Yes.
struggled with his struggling. So in the end, on the semi-final, Charlotte's strategy and quick thinking won her a place in the final two as Ben and Bedelia went home. We get a little preview of this episode, and again, it looks like the finale is going to be a combo of various games we've had throughout the season.
Now
Which
wait, you missed David Tennant's best line here.
oh, I did laugh at him, but I didn't write it down.
So he welcomes everyone and says, "Wonderful to see you all again." And I'm like, dude, you've literally never seen them, and you
Yeah.
probably never will. I doubt it that he's even bothering to watch. He got his check, and that's it.
Yeah, he even adds in a little "except you" or something like that,
Yeah,
and they
like the
all have a
joke.
giggle.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Uh, it's they quite often cut to Charlotte laughing at David Tennant's scripted jokes, which is really sweet. Like she's enjoying the humor, so
yes.
it's good fun, even though he has no idea who they are.
Yeah.
So we start off in the atrium, and Paul appears. Paul from episode 1, he's back. he of course he wishes he'd been more involved. And next is Scott, and so I sort of realized, okay, they're coming in the order they were eliminated. And it's funny because Paul can't believe that Scott's the next person. He seemed like he was going to be one of the big players, which we
Hmm.
talked about. We kind of were
Right.
sad that someone like that left so early. And so we go through them. It's Pasha, then Amanfi, then Indy. I think they were sort of surprised as well that Indy went out
Hmm.
relatively early or midway through. Allison is next, and the others are theorizing that Charlotte and Ken are probably in the
Yeah.
final. Bex is next, followed by Bedalia and Ben and his Technicolor Dreamcoat, which
Yes.
he posted a funny little video of today saying, "It's Pride Month. Of course I had to wear this."
As as if he knew that when this was recorded a year ago,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. It's just worked out well.
Yeah. I guess I jumped the gun there about David Tennant because it's not till now that he actually says this.
Yes.
So,
David, you've ruined the podcast.
oh,
So yes, David Tennant comes on screen and tells the players they have a crucial role to play. And I'm gonna say already, they don't really. I was kind of, I thought they were gonna do more. They don't really do that
me too.
much.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, I thought based on the previews that there was going to be a lot more interactiveness
yeah,
and involvement, more direct involvement, rather
yeah.
than just, as we're about to find out, selecting random advantages at the beginning and then going to watch in the lounge.
Yeah, I thought that was a bit of a shame to sort of keep them around. I mean, I know maybe it was only a week of filming, but
Hmm.
sort of bring them back to do something really menial and then just have them narrate the show. But
I mean, I didn't. I actually prefer this to having them fully involved. Let Ken and Charlotte duke it out on their own terms.
okay,
Um, I wouldn't have wanted necessarily there to be, oh my gosh, this was the whole season was determined because Bodalia gave Ken an advantage, a
yeah,
specific advantage that he picked.
that's true.
Uh,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, I did worry for a moment if this was going to turn into another Amanfi v Bedalia situation and someone would get ganged up on. I
yeah.
mean, it doesn't. It's sort of fairly even, but. Ken and Charlotte then do arrive, and Ken mentions he's starting with more garnets. He wonders if this will give him an advantage, and it ends up being the case.
Hmm.
So the format will be three death matches. Well, maybe three death matches. It's best of three. Two of the games will be repeats. One will be a new game. So already I sort of thought, wait, if someone wins the first two games. Now, that means we're not going to get to see one of them. Feels like a bit
Yep.
of a shame, especially if it's the new game. It doesn't turn out that way, but I sort of was a bit. Uh,
I
I, I,
suspect that's why they made the new game the second one,
yeah, I guess
just to make sure that it was
that we
used.
got it. Sure, I'm curious to know what the third one would have been. Maybe some of the players know. Maybe Ben's got a bit of an insight into this. Uh, the prize is £44,000. So I thought, oh, they really didn't add any. We thought they would add more at the last minute somehow, but no, it's it's just exactly
Yeah.
what it was last time. So
I mean,
really surprised.
£44,000 for a week of work is not bad.
Yes, of
Don't get
course.
me wrong. A lot of these shows go on for, multiple weeks I mean, what's the traders? A couple of weeks probably.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but even in the UK, the traders prize is,
Like over 100,000.
well, I guess it's been about 100,000. So I guess that's about on par for the hourly wages
Sure.
of a reality show winner. But for 8 episodes, I would have thought that they would have gotten more than that.
Yeah. And obviously, this is nothing to do with the fact that it hasn't performed well. They didn't know that
Right.
when they
This
filmed
was
it.
right.
And it's ITV. It's a huge channel. It's prime time viewing,
Yeah.
and actually, generally, ITV it shows that aren't the BBC usually do have bigger prizes
Hmm.
because they're not sort of partly publicly paid for. So yeah, I was very surprised. Uh, so the returning players, like we've said, can offer support in the form of one advantage each, which is good because I sort of thought, what support is Bex going to give? Just sort of maybe running from room to room to distract people, but I'm not sure what else. So
I'm sure Bodalia could have explained the rules to Ken.
that's yes, of course. Yeah, we need Vidalia for that.
Yeah.
Ken may have struggled. Ken and Charlotte then have to leave, and Charlotte reckons we just get a little bit of them talking about how they've played the whole series.
Hmm.
She thinks that she's played a better social game, but actually Ken he also thinks he's done pretty well there too, and I think they are both popular.
Hmm.
Everyone gets on with them as it proves.
Yeah.
Back in the atrium, the players basically have to pick up advantage domes and assign it to the player they want to support. However, and this isn't really explained until it happens, when they pick up a piece at random, they have to hold it up to the camera and it reveals something written underneath. I'm going to work my way through them. We don't, as viewers, find this out straight away. I'm sort of retrospectively explaining what they are because we find out throughout the episode. There are two double points in one round that can only be used in the first death match. There's a steal, which means you can steal an advantage from the other player. There are two magnifying glass icons, which means reveal. They can only be used in the first death match. There's an invalidate, which means you can block the other player's advantage. It's kind of like if anyone's played the card games Exploding Kittens, it's like the Nope card when you can just say nope. Or there's another great card game called Unstable Unicorns, and there's a Nay card, so you can say Nay. Spell, of course, Neigh. There are two penalty blockers. This cancels the first penalty in a round if you were going to receive a penalty. That can only be used in Deathmatch 1. There are two X tokens. This means duplicate, therefore Deathmatch 2. And I think finally there is an additional +2. It's called the added value advantage. And that goes to Ken directly because he has accrued more garnets. So that's one of the advantages that having more garnets earns him in the game. I'll just sort of briefly run through who picks what person to
Hmm.
support. Paul, Scott, they want to support Charlotte. Pasha is Ken.
So let me
Amanfi.
stop
Oh,
you there
yep, yep,
with,
yep.
with Pasha because most of them didn't say much. But Pasha said, well, Ken relied purely on his own merit to get to this point. And all I could think of is, how do you know?
It's true,
You
yeah.
you've been
We've
out
not been here.
for days and days now.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you know what he did to get to this point?
Yeah, very good
Uh,
point.
and also, what does that even mean? Because Charlotte relied on her own merit to get to
Yeah,
this point.
yeah.
So I don't understand some of the comments, and that one in particular jumped out at me.
Yeah, that's I hadn't noticed that, but yeah, you're right. It doesn't really make any sense unless they've been watching on the whole time. I doubt they have.
No, because
Uh,
then they'd know who was out, and they wouldn't have been surprised and
yeah,
everything.
that's right. Pasha says something a little bit later as well that did make me laugh, but I hadn't sort of focused on this one. Amanfi and Indy both support Charlotte. Alison and Beck support Ken. Ben goes for Charlotte. Bedelia goes for Ken. So it's a pretty even split. Five of them have picked Charlotte, four pick Ken. And then the players head to the lounge. And yeah, from this point on, they're kind of just watching on, commenting. They don't have much to actually do now.
Hmm.
So the finalists get ready to begin. It's time for deathmatch one. It's what's funny is there's this sort of I really liked it. There's this eerie lighting. The big G on the table is illuminated. It's quite intense, quite spooky. Ken and Charlotte are obviously told, can you both talk a little bit about why you want to win? So
Right.
they chat a bit. They talk about their competitive spirit. They're obviously sort of just encouraged to do that
Yeah.
for the cameras. And it's really sweet because they wish each other luck. They're never ever unpleasant to one another throughout the episode. I mean, it would may have been made more exciting TV if they'd been a bit more nasty to each other, but I guess it's nice to see.
Yes.
The eerie lighting actually then vanishes, just sort of goes back to normal, and I thought, oh, a bit boring. It does come back for the game, but it's a bit funny that it was on and off. The game is same or different. This is the death match from episode one, which was played by Paul and Pasha. And that was the game where Pasha seemed to be doing so terribly all the way through, and then
Hmm.
somehow managed to turn it around and figure it out, and Paul went home. Uh,
Which
I'll-
actually, now that you mention it, so I had written a note that I was laughing at Paul commentating during this or just before about how they'll both be really good and it's just who cracks. And so to me, I was like, you knew them for a few hours. How would you
Hmm.
know this? But you just reminded me he knows because
Yeah.
he's the one who cracked.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess he's basing it on his experience in the game, I
Yeah.
suppose. I won't explain the game in as much detail as the first time, but briefly, they have to look at shapes on a grid and identify three pictures that form a set. This means the three main properties, shape, color, background, are either each all the same or all different. I wanted to add a little note here. This is going to get complicated, but something that some viewers were a bit unsure of the first time round, and messaged me about, and I think even I was confused about, is you could have, for example, you could have the shape and the color be the
Hmm.
same in all three pictures, but the background could be all
Yes.
different. I think some people thought they all had to be the same or all had to be different, but you can have this combination, which is why the game is tricky.
Which is, it's interesting because David Tennant explained it better here
Mm,
than he did the first time, from my
yeah,
recollection.
yeah, okay.
Which makes me wonder, did they have him back in to, add some explanation of some of these games after things
Yeah,
didn't go well?
yeah, wouldn't be surprised. Also, wouldn't be surprised if they used like some voice AI to create David Tennant. Pretty sure they'd have to ask his permission for that, but you never know. Uh, they have 10 seconds each to answer. 1 point for correctly identifying a set. Lose a point if you incorrectly call a set. You can call complete when you think there are no more sets and try not to do a pasha. You lose a point if you call incorrectly, and you gain 3 points for calling complete correctly. And of course, it's most points after 5 rounds that will win this game. Charlotte tells us she's been mentally preparing for this, and Ken's feeling pretty confident too. This is where David Tennant explains what the advantages are. I've already gone through them.
Hmm.
And he also says who gave what advantage to whom. It, the way he said, I don't know if it was like this on set, the way he says it makes it sound like the players actively chose what the advantages were. He's like, um, and Pasha gave the duplicate advantage to, like, they didn't know what they were picking up.
Right.
I wonder if Charlotte and Ken thought that. I don't know. It just was funny the way that the narration was. This is where I noticed Pasha say something funny. So when David Tennant says, and Pasha gave this advantage was given to Ken by Pasha, and we cut to Pasha going, "I hope Charlotte doesn't hold that against me."
Yeah.
I thought, I don't think she'll care.
Yeah.
It's
Well, yeah. And it's not like you're in the game
yeah,
anymore.
you're not
And
in the game.
yeah, I mean, like personally, is she going to hate you forever because you randomly assigned something? I don't think so.
Yeah, yeah. Charlotte seems way too nice for that. So
Yeah.
Pasha, you're fine. Ken also gets to choose who goes first. It's another advantage of having the most garnets, and he chooses himself. I am not going to go through every single set that they pick out. I've noted some highlights of the game, and
Really? What
Dave,
about 157? Did you notice that one, or 2, 4, 6?
I
Did you?
missed 246. Damn! Thank God you're here.
Yeah.
I'll pick out what I thought were the highlights of this game. David, feel free to add in anything you feel I've missed. I would like to say my proudest moment of Genius Game comes here. Ken calls complete when I can still see a set. I could still
Wow.
see 4, 7, and 8. I wrote this one down, and I felt quite smug about that. But Charlotte didn't spot it either. Neither of them can spot anything else, and the round it just goes on until it ends.
Hmm.
So I, for one brief moment in time, out geniused Ken and Charlotte. I am feeling very proud. Personal
Yes.
highlight of the season. Um, Although I did wonder, I don't think this is the case. I did wonder if Charlotte just didn't attempt to find one as long as Ken wasn't doing it. I
I mean, we noticed that, not to jump ahead, but we definitely noticed that in the later rounds.
yeah. Uh,
But if
so
if it happened in this round, it was not spoken of.
yeah, it could have been the case that she did spot it, but thought, well, if I say it, he'll just call complete again, and he'll get
Right.
3 points, and I'll only get one. So that might have happened.
Which is interesting because this level of strategy, I don't remember it at all in the Paul
No,
versus Pasha.
yeah, I don't think
I,
it came up.
I think that they just were shouting out. I mean, also Pasha called complete every 3 seconds, at least in the early goings. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, I don't think this. It's just interesting when you see the difference between these two playing and the first two playing.
Yeah, definitely. I will still choose to believe that Charlotte just couldn't see either and that I am just a genius. Ken, that round's over. Ken says he's finding the game hard, and then Charlotte goes, "I like it. That was a fun round." And I wondered if they were both doing a bit of mind games. Like, is
Yeah.
Ken pretending it's harder than it is? Is Charlotte deliberately acting like really confident to throw him off? I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. Round two, then. Here are the main things that I noticed. Ken uses his reveal and his double advantage. He tells us that he wants Charlotte to use her invalidate, which she immediately does. So it's out of the game. There are lots of sets in this round. Charlotte
Yes.
calls complete wrong. And normally she would lose 1 point, but because of the double that Ken used, she actually loses 2 points. The game ends again without them actually being able to spot anymore. At this point, the score is Charlotte 6 and Ken 7, so
Yeah.
not
Now
much in
this
it.
was definitely one where he saw it. He eventually saw it, but he didn't want to hand Charlotte 6 points
Yeah, yeah,
if that was the last one. So he just kept his mouth shut on it.
yeah, which is really smart.
Yes,
You'd think he was on a show called Genius Game.
I know.
Uh, and Charlotte actually does, she says she regrets not using her penalty blocker. I mean, it wouldn't have made that much of a difference, but the funny thing is she doesn't then use it in the next round. She still holds on to it for a while. Uh, Round three, all that I've really noted here is that it's a strange round because there's only one solution on the grid.
Yeah, that was
So,
crazy that there was only one set,
yeah.
which does that mean like I just presumed that the designers purposely picked, but I wonder if they just hit a button on a randomizer and whatever happens happens.
Uh, yeah. I assumed it was deliberate. I assumed it was designed to sort of throw them off a bit. And oh, wouldn't it be,
Mm-hmm.
if we went from one round where there were loads of solutions to trick them, and there's only, I think it was probably deliberate. Ken is the one who spots it, and then he calls complete correctly. So really, the
Yeah.
points start to shift too much at this point.
Yes.
Charlotte's still on 6. Ken now has 11. For round four, Charlotte does use her penalty blocker. And soon she calls complete incorrectly. And of course, no penalty. She used the blocker. Ken, I think again, spots what he
Yep.
thinks could be the final combination. He even tells Charlotte what it is. But of course, like we've said, she doesn't use it in case he then just calls complete
Right.
and he's going to get 3 points. She would only have had one. What's the point? So it's sort of smart of both of them to just almost mutually silently agree to come to a standstill here. Now Charlotte has 8 points and Ken has 12. For round five, final round, Charlotte again calls incomplete wrongly. I got this sense that she kind of was just panicking and losing it a little bit here. Loses her point. She does it again on the next turn after Ken finds one. The score here is 9-17. It just sort of seems a bit hopeless. It feels like a foregone conclusion. I mean,
Yeah.
unless there were still loads of combinations and Charlotte suddenly starts finding them and
Right.
Ken starts calling incomplete, but eventually she does call complete correctly, but it's too late. So
Well, he handed it to her at that point,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah, even though it was never going to make a difference.
Right. Right.
So Ken has won Deathmatch 1. We head into Deathmatch 2, 2 of 2, as it turns out to be. This is called the Golden Triangle. This is a new game. This is the one we haven't seen before. And I have thoughts on this game, which I'll keep to the end of the pod when we're giving our sort of final thoughts on the season.
Mm-hmm.
Here are the rules. Each player well, roughly the rules, right? If you've watched the show, you probably get it. It wasn't too complicated, this one, I don't think. Each player has 10 numbered triangles, 1 to 10. They place them on a board that's in the shape of
In the
the big
shape
G
of,
logo, like
yeah.
right behind David here. See if you're not on if you're not watching on YouTube, you will not know what a letter G is. Uh, one triangle will end up left empty. So there must be 21 blank
Mm-hmm.
triangles. And this empty triangle will be the golden triangle. Ooh. And David Tennant also had made a funny joke about that that did make me laugh. The sum of each player's own triangles touching the sides of the golden triangle becomes their score. Highest score wins the round, and there will be 3 rounds. Ken is telling us that he hasn't played a game like this before, so or he pretends, if he maybe he's pretending to be worried that Charlotte's going to come up with some really clever strategy. But of course, Ken is. I think he's a mathematician. I mean, he's great at this stuff. I don't think he really needs to worry much. Um, as Charlotte says to him, "Oh, there are some obvious things to do and not do." She probably does know that, but also I think is trying to psych him out a bit. There's a clip here. We cut to a Manfi for a little bit of narration, and I thought we were being led down a route that actually we weren't. I was tricked. There's a clip of a Manfi saying it's probably beneficial to go second in this game.
Right.
We then cut to Ken choosing to go first. So I thought, oh, they've given us a bit of foreshadowing. Charlotte's going to win this game because she went second. That's completely wrong. So I was kind of mad for a moment. I was like, man, they've made that so obvious what's going to happen. I was no longer a genius. My genius had left my brain now. Uh, Ken also receives his new advantages that can be used for this death match. Those are the added value and the duplicate. We're reminded that Charlotte still has her steal advantage. And she uses it straight away and she takes his duplicate advantage.
Hmm.
It basically means she can choose to duplicate one of her triangles. Is it here that we see what I think does she do it straight away? She
I think
duplicates her
in
10.
no,
Or
she
maybe she
does it
saves
in the
it.
third
Ah,
round.
she saves it, yeah.
Yeah, in the third round.
Which uh we'll see well, we'll get to it when she does it. So first round, here are my highlights. Ken admits he doesn't really know how to begin. It's going to take him a bit of playing. I mean, it takes both of them a bit of a
Right.
playthrough to get used to it. Charlotte, I think, is trying to mess with him as soon as he places his first tile. She's sort of saying, that was interesting. That's an interesting thing that you've done there. um, and she tells us that she's placing her tiles in a way that creates more map coverage, i.e., you're not going to start tucked away in a corner. You want to start
Right.
in the middle of this playing board. Ben's watching on and narrating. He reckons Charlotte's trying to fill the spaces around her big numbers with smaller numbers, I think, if I'm following him, so that Ken can't fill those. Both players kind of adopt the same strategy. Start with 10, work your way back down to 1.
Yeah.
At the end of the first round, Charlotte has 4 points and Ken has 7. We go into round 2, and Charlotte, yeah, now she tells us that she'll use her duplicate as soon as Ken uses his added value. He does it, so she does it. Ken, and then well, no, sorry. I'm getting it wrong again. She just tells us this is what's going to happen.
Right.
And he doesn't use it this time. It is
Right.
round 3. Sorry. Why did I write my notes in this weird order? In round 2, Ken goes first again, but Charlotte's trying a new strategy. And the other players are commenting that Charlotte seems much calmer now. So again, I thought, oh, we're being led in a sort of narrative direction. Charlotte's really calm and cool. She's going to turn it around and win the game. Little did I know. And the end round 2 with Charlotte on 12, Ken on 15. They actually both scored the exact same points in this round. They both
Right.
scored 8. It was like a draw. And then in round 3, they both play their advantages. I mean, there only are 3 rounds. They might as well. So Charlotte duplicates her 10 and replaces the 1. Ken, it was fun. When the duplicate thing was explained, I did wonder how that was going to work. Like I thought, hey, they're going to have too many triangles. They're just going to fill the board. But yeah, you take one away. And Ken has to go to the dealer room to tell them which number he wants to add 2 to.
Yeah, it seemed a little unfair to me that her advantage is on the board,
Yeah.
seen, his is secret. Now, it doesn't end up making a difference, but it still seemed a little odd to me. Like, no, I would think that they should both be the same.
Yeah. I mean, unless it's so obvious that whoever's got the duplicate, of course, is going to pick their 10, that there's
Right.
kind of no point in keeping it a secret. But
I mean,
yeah.
it was pretty funny when the dealer asked, and she's like, the 10, obviously.
Yeah, yeah. So yes, Ken goes off, adds his 2. He chooses the number 8. because he thinks it's not so obvious to Charlotte. Like maybe
Yeah.
she'll assume that he'll pick 10 or even 9, but actually he'll go one extra and pick 8. In this round, it seems like Charlotte gains the upper hand early on. I think the problem is that she just sort of keeps guessing wrongly about where he's placed his added
Mm-hmm.
value. Like what his trick worked. So she sort of at one point she's like, I think you've probably put it on this number, and then a minute later she's saying, now I think you've put it on that number, and she's just trying to predict, and she can, and she's wrong. So I think that's what messes us up. Which is, well, I guess it's kind of like what you said. Maybe that was a bit of an unfair advantage that she didn't get to find out what number he picked. It was an extra layer of difficulty
Yeah.
for her. Um, I'm watching it in the knowledge that he's picked the 8 to add the 2 to. So I noticed that there's a space on the board beside his 8. And even though she has a 9 beside that triangle, which would beat it,
Mm-hmm.
he sort of just keeps avoiding that space. So I wondered if Charlotte would notice, hey, that's
I
that's
mean,
weird that he's not trying to fill that little space.
the
But
thing is, she still loses. Even an 8
uh,
versus 9, even without the +2, he was 3 points ahead.
yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it would have made a difference.
So
Yeah,
that's,
yeah, I
I
guess.
was like, what are you doing?
Yeah, in fact I made a note of that after the game. So it ends with Charlotte on 21 and Ken on 25. And yeah, I had noted even without his added value, he still
Mm-hmm.
would have won. So it's kind of done already. Ken has
Yeah.
won. Celebrations, hurrah! David Tennant fake congratulates him. Uh,
Well, you know what? We actually see the end of David Tennant for the, I mentioned this like all the way back at our first podcast that whenever we hear a name, we don't see David Tennant's
yeah,
face. In this one, we see him saying not the K part of Ken, but the N part of Ken.
yeah,
And then, congratulating him. So either they had him record specifically for the final two, or more likely he just, recorded the congratulatory
yeah,
message for each player and someone just hit the Ken button.
yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure that's what they've done. It's funny you
Yeah.
say that. I thought I caught that. I thought, hey, it looked like he said Ken there, and I just
Mm-hmm.
dismissed it because I thought, no, your mind's playing tricks on you. He
Well,
said it, and they quickly cut to him. But yeah, actually, if you noticed it as well.
I rewound it multiple times and then I used it for my congratulatory video.
Oh,
So
there you
yes,
go. So Ken has won. Hooray! And we get a little bit of Charlotte in her confessional, and she's crying. It's really sweet again. She's
mm-hmm.
crying because Ken said that he was proud of her, and so she takes that as
Yes,
very high
yes,
praise. Ken, he receives his prize, kind of. I think he just sort of gets a big pile of garnets,
yeah.
and
And
he
they're
gives
like,
it,
you can cash these in or something like that. Like, yeah, okay.
yeah, your plastic garnets. I mean, the show's probably never going to come back again. Maybe they'll become rare collector's items. And 100 years in the future, they'll be like really collectible TV memorabilia. But for now, don't think so.
Yeah.
He gives a nice, heartwarming speech to everybody. And the episode finishes with Ken giving us a nice little sort of inspirational quote. He tells
Mm-hmm.
us that really you need to understand yourself to be a
Yes.
genius. Hurrah! Well done, Ken.
Yes. You also need to understand the rules. And,
That's true.
which takes me to what I thought was the funniest part of all the commentary we saw in the lounge. None of it was from Bodalia. We heard from Paul, first boot, Paul. We heard from him multiple times. I don't think, other than like a brief confessional at the very beginning, I don't think we heard from Bodalia at all, which one made me happy. And two, it's probably because he was still trying to figure out the rules and the people he would normally ask were out there playing the game.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, so that we're not piling on Bedalia, I think all we hear from Bex is a couple of like noises
Yes,
like
I was
this.
I was thinking the same of Bex. I didn't go back and check. I mean, the two of them end up as kind of peas in a pod when it comes to that,
Yeah.
the whole rule understanding situation.
Yeah.
I think that Bodalia just stands out a little bit more in
Yeah.
that regard because he's literally always asking, what's going
Yeah.
on? What's happening? What? And he put Charlotte into the final two by not understanding,
Mm,
by not dropping the Garnet last week.
yeah.
And then literally after not dropping it, he goes, now what?
Yeah.
What
Just
happens?
he didn't understand that he
Yeah.
had lost.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually felt like most of the commentary of the players watching, what it was like Paul, Ben, we had a little bit from Allison, I think, a little
Hmm.
bit from Indy, but yeah, some of them we didn't really hear much from them. Uh, so it's over. I've got some final thoughts on the whole season. I'm sure you do too, David. I think both of us have listener questions.
Yes.
So, do you want to kick us off with yours, David?
Sure. Sure. So this is from Kelsey on Blue Sky. And she said, how much did they pay David Tennant to be a virtual host?
Ooh.
Um,
A lot.
More than Ken got is what I'm thinking. And he only had to work for a few hours, whereas Ken had to be there the whole week.
Mm,
So, yeah, I don't know how much, but considering what a big name David Tennant is, I have to imagine, like I said, it was a lot. I would say of the budget, there was a much bigger chunk given to him than the prize pool.
yeah.
So, um, so yeah, which good, easy money for David.
Mm, yeah. I have no inside info on this, but I
Yeah,
would guess the same as you. I think he probably got paid more than the than £44,000 prize
yeah,
fund. Yeah, he's a big name. It's not, as far as I know, David Tennant doesn't do lots of presenting. He's done sort of a couple of he did like a documentary thing for BBC. He goes back home, he's meeting his dad, but he doesn't present game shows or TV shows. He's an actor and a really, really, really good actor. So I imagine to convince him to front a game show, it would have taken quite a big paycheck.
yeah.
Unless he is just a massive fan of Genius Game Korea, and begged to do it. I don't know. Maybe. I haven't seen any interview clips of him saying such a thing.
Yeah.
I have an email from Karen. So Karen actually also started off her email by saying, by the way, Ken is saying chaotically, not chaotically. Uh, and then goes on to say, I love this podcast and have recruited listeners. Thanks, Karen. And Karen has a suggestion about the show. Given the flaws and variations in the level of explanation provided by the producers, I wonder whether there is a case for a Traitors Uncloaked type series to run after each episode on ITV2 or a kind of director's cut. Like, a sort of a sideshow, a spin off series. I think this series will eventually get a cult following. People I know who are watching are ardent fans. There seems to be no middle ground. And P.S. Ken to win. Karen, congratulations, you were right. And she did send this before the final aired. She says Ken to win, or maybe Charlotte. From the off, they were the two with the best combination of skills.
Yeah.
So I thought that was an interesting idea. David, do we one of the main issues with most viewers that turned them off this show seemed to be it's too complicated. Would some sort of sideshow or after show where things are explained more have helped? Would you have been interested in such a thing?
I don't think so because I think those people were not going to then tune in
Yeah.
to, oh, I didn't understand hour one. Let's see if hour two explains it to me.
Yeah.
I think they just get frustrated, and I just don't see that, being something that would draw people in, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree. If you and I like Karen saying there are ardent fans.
Yes,
The people who are watching seem to be loving it, and they might watch the extra
right.
show, but I don't think it would make much of a difference to the success of the show or the ratings.
Yeah.
I did suggest one thing to Karen. Something came to mind. There was a show that just aired a couple of months ago. I think it's finished now here in the UK on BBC. It was called Chess Masters, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It was a chess game, which I saw clips of, didn't watch a whole episode.
Was Bodalia on it going, what does this little horse do?
But maybe he auditioned and didn't make it, didn't get a call back. Uh, Actually, funnily enough, there's a Traitors connection because anyone who's listening who watched Chess Masters might have recognized one of the experts on the show. It's a guy called Anthony. Anthony was in season 2 of Traitors UK. He was
Oh,
he sort of had made it like halfway through the show, so I recognized him instantly. And when he was on the Traitors, it's sort of he was pitched as a chess coach or chess expert. I think it might have even been, the writing that came on under his name
yeah.
on the screen. Uh, so it's nice to see Traitors people getting extra work. But what I was going to say was that I saw enough of the show to get the format. Sorry, I'm just whacking my microphone. There were contestants like playing the games of chess, but in a sort of side studio, they had an expert with a big chess screen, and they would talk you through that. Now it sounds like incredibly boring to me, but they would have the expert go, David's just moved his rook to, A4. This means that, and so they would have someone like step by step, in case the viewers don't know chess that well, or just to try and get into the heads of these really incredible players. So maybe Genius Game could have had something like that, like a panel watching or on or something,
I mean,
talking you
we
through the
sort
game
of
more.
we had that sort of in the death matches because people would commentate
Mm,
from the lounge.
yeah,
The problem was we didn't have it in the main matches, and that's when
yeah,
things got super complicated.
yeah, yeah.
Like, yeah, get David Tennant in there to say, and now we see that Ben is collecting two people
Yeah.
and pulling them together, pulling them aside in order to, get them to do what he wants. And yeah, like a golf type announcing there.
Yeah, and Bex is running to the next room, and now she's
Yes,
running back, and
yes.
running again. Uh, so actually, Karen's email about, the fandom of the show maybe leads
Hmm.
on to some of my final thoughts of the series. Why don't I kick us off for this one? So,
Sure.
I have to say, I found this final episode a little anticlimactic. I didn't think the Golden Triangle was a great last game, and
Hmm.
of course there could have been an extra game after that if it's been a draw and we needed a third game. But the game makers knew that it was a possibility Golden Triangle might be the last one. I didn't find it all that exciting to watch.
I
It seemed like when Ken won. It was sort of, it wasn't tense until the last minute. It sort of became obvious over a
Yeah.
few minutes that Ken was going to win. So it seemed to felt like it just happened.
I mean, I like the game. I like the
Okay.
game design. I thought it was a good new game to be added.
Yeah.
I do think that as you're watching it, it's hard to get into their heads into
Yeah.
terms of what I mean. They showed a couple times, but then things didn't go that way. And as I was watching, I was like, no, put it there. No, put it there, which I guess is good,
Mm.
in some ways that we have that. So I thought that was a good addition
Okay.
in terms of that game.
Yeah, that's
I thought it was
interesting.
silly. I thought it was silly at the end that the dealer had to come in and place the golden triangle in the one empty spot. You could have just made the game board gold underneath, and then the golden triangle would have appeared basically as,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, I thought so too. It felt a little silly. But
yeah.
that's interesting. You were kind of interacting with the game. I wasn't. I was kind of just watching it and letting it happen. I didn't really feel like maybe that's just me not being smart. Maybe I just couldn't keep, I mean, I got the game and I could see what they were doing, but I wasn't trying to think about where I would place the pieces all that much.
Yeah.
As we've said many times on this season of the podcast, Genius Game has become a really an expensive and notorious flop for ITV. I found out the ratings for last night's episode, and this will go up as people watch on catch up on ITVX online. But the sort of overnight figures were 660,000, which for prime time ITV is really poor. That was 5% share of the audience, and ITV shows at prime time normally would be in their million, not 10 million, but well over a million
Right.
anyway. So these are really low numbers. However, I mostly enjoyed watching the season. I think my interest waned as it went on. Perhaps I remember the very first episode, I had a really positive reaction to it and was surprised at how much other people really didn't like it.
Hmm.
Would I have watched the whole podcast, the whole season without the podcast? I actually think probably not. I think I might have not made it all the way to the end. And if there was a season two, I'd give it an episode or two to see if big changes had been made. If it looked like it was going to be the exact same, I also don't think I would watch it again. And I guess my last main issue is well, two issues. One is we've talked about casting. Casting was a big issue for me, and I think my main problem with a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it, is that most of the games were probably 10 times more fun to play than to watch other people playing.
Hmm. Yeah.
David, what are
Yeah.
your sort of overall reactions to the series?
Um, well, my winner pick made it to second
Oh,
place,
hey, yes. Well
which is the
done.
same as my Survivor winner pick did last season. So I'm running right there in the
Yeah.
second place area.
Well
Um,
done.
I do think it's been pretty clear that Ken was the one to beat for a little while now.
Mm.
I'm very happy with the outcome. Ken is a very deserving winner,
Yep.
deserving of more than £44,000. Um, now, you said it was an expensive flop, and I was like, expensive where? It didn't go. Where'd the money go? Oh, David
And
Tennant.
David Tennant,
Uh,
yeah.
and the whole design setup, presumably.
Yeah.
Um, you mentioned that your interest kind of waned. For me, it was more like a U.
Okay.
It started out, and then there were those couple of really bad episodes in the middle, and then I think the last three episodes were much better.
Okay.
I think if they could have kept the quality of those three episodes through the whole series,
Yeah.
it would have been much different. Now, of course, part of the problem with two of the last three episodes were Bedalia and Bex. And so I really do think whoever cast those two should be fired and never rehired again. Because I don't know what you were thinking. I really don't know what you were thinking throwing them in. Well, sorry. I'm afraid that I do know what they were thinking. And what they were thinking was this needs to be like the Traders US, where we have a mix of the gamers and the housewives type characters. I'm not comparing, but well, I guess I am comparing Bedalia to a housewife, but to the non gamers, and that genius has all forms. I understand genius has all forms. You could be a musical genius and not understand physics or games or whatever. Fine, I get that. But you still got to understand the rules.
Yeah.
And it was so frustrating, not just to me, but to like everyone in my mentions on Blue Sky who would talk about this with me, was so frustrated that he could not even understand the rules. And Bex too.
Hmm.
If you're going to be on a game about being a genius, come on, at least understand that. That's the most basic aspect of it.
Yeah.
And I know some of the rules were complicated. I understand it. But like letting Charlotte win because you didn't understand what was going on and then goofily laughing about it, it was just so annoying. And that was just the final straw at that point.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do think casting played a big role in some of the problems, but more than that, I think it was the overall format was not adjusted to an audience that is not used to this type of a game.
Yeah. I think so.
Um, I know that I've seen some people, including the one that I mentioned before on Blue Sky, who I think they were one of the game designers for this show. They may have had other roles within the show as well. Saying crossing everything in hopes of a renewal. And I saw some other fans saying, crossing my fingers. You're going to need to cross a lot more than fingers and toes and eyes and tongue. I don't know what it would take to get this back. I truly don't know, unless suddenly there's this huge upswing in people watching it now
Hmm.
online on
Yeah.
ITV, and they suddenly go, "Oh wow, it's worth it."
Yeah.
I just I don't I don't know. I don't see it. I think another problem, and this is something we discussed, was when we and other people saw that David Tennant was going to be on the show. We thought he was going to be on the show, not
Yeah.
on a screen, not interacting.
Yeah.
And so I think that people who tuned in for David Tennant were probably pretty annoyed.
Yeah. Yeah. As I was, I knew you were.
Right. Right. The difference is we kept watching for other reasons, but I wonder how many people didn't keep watching for that reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think there were a lot of issues with the way the game was brought over to the UK, and I would be extremely shocked if it got a season two.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I would bet money that this will not be renewed. I think ITV just will not touch this format and just want to forget like it
No.
never happened. I mean, the fact that they cut it from 2 episodes a week to just 1 episode
Yeah.
says an awful lot about what they thought of it, losing them viewing figures 2 nights in a row.
Yeah.
Uh, the and again, there are the people who do love the show, but and
Right.
a lot of them are saying, "Oh, but Genius Game Korea is so great." I'm sure it is great, but you kind of hinted at what the problem is that it hasn't been adjusted for a broad audience, the kind of people who watch ITV at
Right.
9 p.m. at night. This is just not the right place for the show. It's not the right audience. They really had to simplify it or make it more fun or have David Tennant actually there and interact with them or whatever it
Right.
is. The only future I can see for Genius Game UK is if another channel in like 10 years decided to revisit it and thought, hey, that show still does really well in other territories. Maybe we
Hmm.
rejuvenate it and forget that old version and let's totally redo this. But this show's not coming back anytime soon, I'm afraid.
No. No. I don't. Yes, I would bet garnets on it.
Yes. What a great way to round things up.
Yeah.
No, I still have a couple of important things to let listeners on, including what the podcast is moving on to in 24 hours. But first, let's tell everyone where they can find us in case they are not yet following us on social media. David, how can we keep up with you?
So I am still all over social media and taking a little break from reality TV podcasting between now and US Big Brother. Uh, so after this one, and we'll talk more about your announcement in a moment. But yeah, I'll be taking a short break from podcasting, but still posting at least two reality TV short videos every day on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, where I am at David Bloomberg TV. Right now, it's mostly Survivor flashbacks and looks ahead to Survivor 50. Um, I had the congratulatory for the Genius game. There's also Destination X, which is in the US, but it's about riding around in a bus in Europe. So, one video I'm going to post is something we talk about frequently. Someone I haven't posted it yet, but it will be this week. Someone telling a lie that makes no sense for no reason. And it's just one of those things that keeps happening on reality shows. Like, why are you telling this lie? There's no point. You're going to get caught and people are going to be mad at you. So, just videos like that will continue. Um, and so I may also do people can watch for this. I may do a couple of short videos on um, the rumored traders
Yes, yes.
U.S. list that's out there, and my brief thoughts on that, and then maybe a couple other longer than usual but shorter than a podcast videos.
Yeah,
So again, those will be on all the different channels that I use. And you can find all of my accounts through my link tree at linktree/David Bloomberg or directly on Blue Sky as at David Bloomberg.
that's great. And yes, the US Tracers casting. I've seen so many versions of this now. I'm just very cynical, so or skeptical maybe.
Yeah.
I some of the suggested names, I actually know quite a few of them. Some of them seem fun, and I'm kind of excited to see. But who knows? We kind of had this with the UK celebrity traitors, and the cast for that has officially been confirmed now. But
Hmm.
there were wrong names being fed to us all the way up to the announcement. So, and people sometimes drop out at the last minute. I think there's been rumors of that for US traitors. So and so isn't doing it anymore. They've suddenly had to find someone
Yeah.
else. So I'm going to wait until an official announcement, but we'll see who ends up on it. Now, to make sure you are up to date with the podcast and the Traitors and Genius Game and Million Dollar Secret and this next show the podcast will be covering, you can follow on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at the Tradar Podcast. You can leave comments on those places. You can email me, thetradarpodcast@gmail.com. And it's a little late now, but if you want to leave me a voice message, you could. It's memo.fm/the Tradar Podcast. Love to hear people talking to me.
Just to say hi. Yeah.
Yeah. It's also really helpful, as always, to subscribe, follow, leave nice reviews on those platforms, helps other people find the podcast more easily. And finally, if you have been listening to the pod and enjoying and you want to help it keep going, you could follow in the footsteps of Peter. Peter has donated kindly to our coffee.com page. That's ko-fi.com/Matthew Keeley. Peter left a comment saying, "Thanks for covering Genius Game. I had high hopes for this one, but as you've mentioned several times, it didn't reach its full potential." And Peter says, "I must really implore you to give the original Korean version a shot. It's just so much better and fun with such a great cast. Just watch." So, as well as The Devil's Plan, which is creeping towards the top of my watch list,
Hmm.
uh, Korean Genius Game at some point I will get there. I've had so many recommendations. So, a couple of final things from me, and then big explanation of what I keep hinting at. I will keep some links in the episode description to a couple of surveys you might want to take part in. One is from a Trader listener, Zach. I mentioned this last time. Zach is carrying out some research for a video game project. So, if you're into social deduction games and you might even play a Traitors game, and you want to do the survey is super, super quick, multiple choice, takes 60 seconds. So the link to that is in the podcast description. That would really help out Zach. And there's a survey for the podcast itself. This is from Acast, which is the platform I use to distribute the pod. Actually, since last time, 9 people have completed the survey, so
Woo!
thanks.
I wasn't
That's
even one of them.
Hey, neither was I. The survey is kind of a little bit lengthy from what I could see, but some people really like doing surveys. It just asks questions about how often do you listen to podcasts? What kind of podcasts do you listen to? When did you start listening to The Trader? What do you think of it? I will never see these responses. It's to help Acast sort of promote the podcast better and put it in the right places. So it ultimately should help the podcast. So if you wanted to, that's something that you could do instead of donating to coffee.com. If this was your way of showing support, that would be wonderful. Now, I mentioned this last time and I'm making it a bit more official. As of today, when we're recording, 12th of June, The Traitors India has begun on Amazon Prime. And I've decided we should cover it on the trailer. I think a lot of people are really interested in it. I've had messages about it saying, "Hey, look at this trailer. Are you going to be covering it?" I've even got some co-hosts lined up. David will be joining me a little later in the season, but we've got some people who are going to be coming on to talk about Traitors India starting tomorrow. So, Traitors, we're back to what the podcast is kind of really supposed to be all about. We've veered off, we're come back. So I'm really excited about Traitors India. The trailer looks great fun. So join us for that. Send me any questions, any thoughts you have, and I'm really excited to get going. David, thank you for joining me to cover this whole season of Genius Game. It's been fun.
Absolutely. Yep, it was fun, even if sometimes, we were a little frustrated. And I'm sure that none of the players who we've talked about, well, one, are listening, and two, have made it this far. But just in case, remember, we don't dislike you personally, just the
Yes.
fact that you are on the show.
Yes, exactly. And I probably had more fun talking about it with you, David, than I had watching it sometimes.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
I didn't mind the seas. It was okay.
Yeah.
Uh, we'll be back really soon, as I said, after this Genius Game finale episode is out there. The next episode is on its way for Traitors India. Until then, keep us on your radar.
And stay traitorous.
Bye.